Over the last 3 years of Pro Valorant, each team that has won the World Championship has completely imploded the very next season. So is the Champions Trophy truly cursed? And if so, how has it affected each team and player that's been crowned the world's best? To find the truth, I decided to look back at each team that has won the World Championship and analyze what went wrong for them after winning, as well as look at where the players are now. And I want to give a quick shout out to AK Turnal, who suggested this in my last video. If you have any ideas that you want me to cover, just put it down in the comments and I just might make a video about it. Also, while you're down there, you can also subscribe if you haven't already. But let's get into the first World Champions of Valorant.
This is what it comes down to. One more man to stand, and Redgar,
30 seconds left.
All the hours you've put in, thousands upon thousands, is down to a 1v4, and it's done! Ascend are your Valorant Champions winners! The first of their kind to etch their names in the history books, and they did it in the shadows, surprising so
So if you've been following my channel for a while now, then you would know that I actually made a mini documentary going over the rise and fall of the first World Champions of Valorant, which you can watch after this. But I want to go a little deeper into what caused their abrupt downfall. After reaching the pinnacle of the Valorant world in 2021, people in the comments talked about how their run in Champions wasn't even that impressive. But actually looking back through the real run, it was undoubtedly hard. First, after beating the second best Brazilian team in Keedstar, they swept Envy, who had all the members of the roster that would become the powerhouse Optic, with CNED matching Gay the entire match. They then went on to sweep Team Secret, who took a map off the defending Masters champs Gambit. Right after that, they were paired up against one of the best rosters at the time, Team Liquid, who had Yumpy as well as the brother buff of Scream and Navera, where at the time, Scream was considered a top 3 player in the league. But in this matchup, they stomped Team Liquid 26-11 in 2 maps to send themselves to the grand finals. And in the grand finals, they weren't matched up against some team that didn't deserve to be there. They were against arguably one of the most dominant teams in Valorant history, Gambit, who had just won Masters Berlin. And Ascent not only had their superstar player CNED playing well, the entire team played as a well-oiled machine and ended up winning map 5 13-8, taking home the trophy. But we can't even chalk up this World Championship run as just a hot streak that hit at the right time, as Ascend proved all throughout the year that they were world class, making it to 5 total grand finals, one of them being a win in the European Masters at the beginning of the season. They also made it to Masters Berlin, where they actually should have won against 100 Thieves in the quarterfinals, if they didn't absolutely choke, where they would have faced Envy in the semifinals, which of course we saw how they could handle them. Either way, they proved their run wasn't some random fluke. Their 2021 season was filled with accolades, and while we know that this was their clear peak, at the time, Ascend looked destined to continue to rack up more grand finals appearances and trophies in 2022. So how were they cursed after winning the first World Championship? Unlike future World Champions that we'll discuss later, this roster actually stayed together, so we can't blame that. Instead, we have to look at how the meta changed from 2021 to 2022. During their run, Jett was relied heavily on, as she was the only agent with a get out of jail free card with her insane dash. It allowed CNED to be able to be aggressive with the op without much danger. This was nerfed, forcing oppers like CNED to change their game style, which did not work for him all throughout the season. Also, Chamber truly joined the meta, forcing a lot of Jett players to pick up the overpowered agent, and for some it worked, like for Ye and Cryo. But for players like CNED and Tens, it was a hard transition that never really stuck. These changes caused Ascend's superstar to not be as super as before, severely cutting out one of the parts of their game that rose them to World Championship caliber. Along with the meta changes, we have to take a deeper dive on how the role players like Zeke, Starzo, and Keyless changed as Pro Valorant continued to mature. For these players, they were unable to really get the ball rolling in 2022 as their play collectively didn't work, as they were unable to switch roles or agents that fit better with the others in the current meta. In 2021, they were able to find comps that worked with all their skills, but that wasn't the case anymore with CNED having to change and the speed of the game changing too. When they were forced to pick up more duties and pressure, they just didn't have it in them as a roster to raise to that level. Ultimately, it caused the players that Ascend needed the most to make big runs slump heavily throughout 2022, until it was just time for Ascend to look for other role players that could do it, forcing the team into a lot of player turnover through the latter part of the season, causing major instability within the team. With these changes and slumps, their 22 season didn't look great. They dropped from an 82 win rate during their championship winning season to a subpar 45%. I won't go over their 2022 season here as I already did that, but I'll put up their placements in each of the tournaments here. But even after this terrible season, are the players from the first World Championship roster still cursed? Well, let's look first at the journey Ascend superstar CNED has had since winning Champions. After playing his final match with Ascend in October 22, he went to play with the FPX core on Na'Vi. While they made both Masters Tokyo and Champions this past year, it actually looked like Na'Vi made these tournaments in spite of his play, as CNED had flashes of his former self on Jet, but just made so many aggressive mistakes that just didn't work with the playstyle of the rest of the team. They were able to beat up on lesser opponents, but in these Masters events, these mistakes were just too much. After losing in Champions, it was clear that things wouldn't work out going forward, so CNED left the team and joined Foot, which actually makes a lot of sense as CNED is Turkish and Foot is Turkish, so allowing him for the first time to play on a team that comms in his native language. We've only seen them play as a team in off-season tournaments so far, but it's already clear that this has been a good move for him, as they've been able to win the Convergence tournament, beating teams like Team Vitality and Gen G. As well as beating DRX in a best of one in the Red Bull Homeground tournament, it seems that 2024 will be a re-emergence of this star entry player. Next, let's look at their IGL Bonecold, who after leaving Ascent at the end of the 2022 season, went to IGL on the franchise team Team Vitality, where they went 4-5 during the EMEA season, where they made the playoffs barely as the 6th seed, where they ultimately fell out the playoffs in the first 2 matches against Team Liquid and Foot. After their lackluster performance, they decided to bench Bonecold, where this offseason they've actually seemed to be improving without him, making the grand finals of the Convergence tournament against Foot. The future is still up in the air on whether another franchise team will decide to pick him up as their IGL, but since his success as the IGL to the World Championship winning team of Ascent, he has fallen far from grace, is hoping to rebound again in this next season. Next, let's look at Starzo and Z, who had similar stories in 2023. They were both picked up by European franchise teams, Koi and Team Heretics respectively, where both of their teams underperformed, neither making playoffs this last season. Starzo, though, on Koi had a better season overall, as he was almost able to punch their ticket to Champions through the LCQ, finishing in 3rd, losing to Na'Vi. Overall, Starzo looked like a good player for this team, as a flex player, but the same couldn't be said for Z, who started the season as Team Heretics initiator. But after starting the season 1-6, Zeke was the first change they made, benching him and using Weber, until they brought in the former Fortnite star Benji Fish, who has looked like a solid addition to the team. Zeke was then released, where he joined the Tier 2 team Go Next Esports, where they actually went on an impressive run in the East United tournament, where he faced up against his former org in the grand finals, losing in a final map 5. Clearly it looks like he'll continue to compete in the Tier 2 scene going into the next season. Lastly, for Ascent, we have to look at what happened to Keyless. He wasn't given any offers in the franchise league, so after playing on the pre-franchised Giants Gaming in 2022, he moved on to the Spanish team Case Esports, where they put together the best roster in Spain, winning both the Stage 1 and 2 Spanish Challengers Leagues to qualify for the EMEA Ascension tournament. But this was where their run would end, as they failed to pick up a win in the group stages, ending the tournament in 10th place. But when looking at how each player has dealt with the curses disbanding, it's clear no one has gotten close to the heights of their previous success. But within their own teams, they have started to grow into players that could possibly lead Tier 2 teams or be a decent addition to a weaker franchise team this next season. But overall, it's clear that the curse has taken the first world champions, Ascend.
It was literally meant to be. It was literally meant to be. She could get knifed. Holy fuck.
Many years of heartbreak at the hands of Optic. Loud beat them in the best possible way.
Now let's move on to the second world champions in Valorant history, the Brazilian legends Loud. After losing in the grand finals of Masters Reykjavik at the beginning of 2022, they were considered a top contender for that year's Champions tournament. After falling short in Masters Copenhagen, they were able to make it to the playoffs of champs after beating Zeta Division twice, and losing a close match against their rivals Optic. This is where they truly started to heat up, as they went on an unstoppable run all the way to grand finals, where they didn't drop a single map against Leviathan, DRX, and Optic Gaming, with each member of the team looking like a top 3 player in their position. They then finished off champions against Optic Gaming 3-1 to end both the legendary rivalry as well as the 2022 season as the second ever world champions in Valorant. And it looked like going into this last season, Loud was unstoppable, but they could not hide from the champion's curse. It was announced just a month after their win that their world-class Initiator and Smokes player, Saucia and Pancata, were departing the team and joining the clouded roster of Sentinels. Losing these two members of the World Championship roster was a huge loss for the team, but they were able to quickly find suitable replacements in Tuez and Kakuzin, two young Brazilian talents that right away seemed like players that could fit into the shoes that were left behind, as Loud looked to not even miss a step going into the season as they dominated the lock-in tournament, dropping only one map in the group stages before winning a hard-fought match against DRX to make the second grand finals in a row. And in the grand finals against Fnatic, it seemed that they had another trophy in the bag to prove that the World Championship curse isn't a thing. But this is when the most improbable comeback occurred, with Fnatic coming back from 11-3 down, winning Icebox, and break the hearts of Loud. While this was still just the first event of the season, this moment was where the real force of the curse pressed down on Loud. They were able to win the Americas League, but this is where their accolades stopped in the 2023 season. They were quickly bounced out of Masters Tokyo in their first two matches of the Masters, not even winning one map against EG or Edward Gaming. Then, in Champs, they seemed to bounce back a little after being pushed to elimination in the group stages. They were able to salvage their run and make it out of the group stages though, winning against Team Liquid and Na'Vi. In the playoffs, they faced off against Fnatic, but this is where some promise started to show as they 2-0'd Fnatic to move to the upper semifinals. And they almost made it to the upper finals after forcing a map 3 against Paper Rex, but a lot of the issues that had been facing them all year revealed themselves again as they choked away Pearl to fall to the lower bracket. They were able to get revenge against EDG as well as eliminate Fnatic, but faced the red-hot EG team, where they put up a good fight, making it all the way to a map 5, but they couldn't put it away to make it to the grand finals and defend their title. And with that, Loud ended their season without a single Masters trophy to their name. But what was really their problem? They seemed to gel as a team in the beginning of the season, but as they played more and more top-tier teams towards the end of the season, they seemed to collapse. Well, first we had to look at the new additions to the roster, Tuez and Kakuzin. With Saucy and Benkata, they had already proved that they were some of the best players in the position, and Tuez and Kakuzin were just young players that had to become that right away. And in their defense, they kinda did. They both played insane throughout the season, already looking like a fit for the team, but sometimes in the biggest moments, they just didn't have the experience to finish it out, such as in the lock-in tournament or in the major events later in the season. There seemed to be a noticeable change between these younger, more unexperienced players from the team they had in 2022. The other major issue is a little bit more of speculation, but it's fair to assume that there was a decent amount of issues between the players, as players weren't practicing together and there was a number of leaked rumors that there was some major dysfunction between Aspas and Les, causing issues for the rest of the team. This supposed infighting could have distracted what could have been a championship caliber team, resulting in them underperforming as the year went on. Overall, this situation was made more clear with Aspas departing the team to join Lev just recently. With these issues stacking up, it's clear that Loud was cursed after their World Championship win in 2022, ruining any chance they had to recapture glory in this last season. But let's look at where the players are now going into 2024. Like I said before, Aspas had been signed by Lev to create a pretty scary team with him and Tex from the Guard joining the team, who already had Mizuno and King. Along with them, there had been some rumors that Calm might be joining the team as well, but as of the time of writing this hasn't happened. Either way, Aspas looks to be on a serious contender going into this next season. For the rest of Loud, it seems that they'll be staying with the org, as they look to find an entry player to fill the Aspas-shaped hole in their roster. While they probably won't find a player that's the same caliber as him, there will definitely be less drama with whoever they pick up, alleviating the added stress of infighting they had last season, hopefully allowing them to focus more on the game and build better chemistry in 2024. As the curse didn't hurt the players in the same way it hurt Ascent's players, it was more that they were unable to keep the team together after winning, forcing them to change what gave them the success they had during their World Championship run.
Jing, the next to try and step into the ring. Demon one on the other side. Ethan's found. Mind Freak is down to 2. This could be it. Another chance for Jing. It's all over. EG are your Valorant World Champions.
But now, we finally get to the most recent world champions, Evil Geniuses. And let's just say that the org has really focused on the first part of the name. After being saved by MIBR in the final week of regular season, by upsetting 100 Thieves and putting EG in the playoffs, they went on the most insane run in Valorant history, where they were able to beat NRG and Cloud9 twice to make Masters Tokyo. Then in Tokyo, they really picked up the heat, sweeping both Foot and DRX in the group stages. Then, in the playoffs, they humiliated Loud and Team Liquid, before barely losing to Fnatic in the upper finals. They were able to make it to the grand finals, winning a grueling match against Paper Rex. While they were swept in the grand finals of Masters Tokyo, this just lit a fire under EG to completely destroy any doubt that they were just on a short-term hot streak, and shocked the world with their champs run, winning every match in Champions, only losing to Paper Rex in the upper finals in a map 3 overtime. They of course redeemed themselves in the grand finals, breaking Paper Rex's heart with a dominant 3-1 win to be crowned the unlikely 3rd world champions in history. And almost immediately, the world champions curse rose its head for this team. EG as an org pretty much told these world championship caliber players to screw themselves, as they were told that they were going to be given lower salary going into next season, getting rid of any incentive for this team of superstars to stay together for the 2024 season to defend their title. First, it seemed that the Champions Curse would consume each one of these players, as they were being locked in contract jail at EG. But being the players they are, teams all around the world scrambled to try and pick them up to hopefully bolster their chance for the next season, and were okay jumping through whatever hoops they had to in order to acquire these young stars, allowing most of the players to leave the burning wreckage that was EG now. So where did each of these players land going into the 2024 season? At the time of writing, a few of the players are still up in the air about where they'll play, but their breakout star Demon One and their veteran star Ethan both joined NRG to create one of the most versatile and dangerous rosters in Valorant right now. With the addition of Marved, NRG is automatically considered one of the favorites to win the Americas League, as well as push for a major tournament victory. While we haven't seen this roster play yet, Demon One and Ethan look to be in good hands for this coming season, seeming to avoid the curse. For their IGL Boostio, there have been a few rumors about him possibly joining 100 Thieves or another franchise team, as he's currently the most sought after IGL in free agency right now, after leading the roster of EG, who had no known superstars before this incredible run. But wherever he goes, it seems that he'll lead another team deep into the season, as he wasn't just an excellent strategist, but one of the most explosive players by the end of the season, leading his team with his fragging skills. Next, on to Judgemo. So there were some rumors that he might end up on G2, but he's the most likely out of all the players from EG to stay with the team, as a lot of teams are already filling up and might not be looking for a player like him right now. Still, a lot of things are up in the air for Judgemo, but he looks ready for another great season going into 2024. Lastly, we get to one of my favorite players in Kong. So I already talked about it in the Loud segment, but there's been rumors that he might be taking NZR's spot on Lev, creating the ultimate Americas team, but right now there's been no confirmation about this, especially since Mizuno is already filling the Smokes role for the team. So either the rumor is wrong, or one of them's going to be shifting roles. Either way, it's clear that it'll probably follow what the rest of the team are doing and find another org to play with, leaving EG to pretty much fill their whole roster after winning the World Championship just a handful of months ago. Who would have thought though, but that's evil geniuses for you. So after looking at the 3 Valorant World Champions, it's clear that some sort of curse is associated with winning this trophy. The curse has affected every single team so far, resulting in every World Champion underperforming in the years that followed. So will this curse follow into 2024, or will it be a thing of the past? I guess we'll find out this season. So if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you subscribe, as I'll be putting out videos throughout the entire season, so you don't want to miss out. Also, you can check out my last video, all about the very first underdogs of Valorant.